This is actually the final Japanese horror film that I'm going to talk about for Dangtober. I have a lot of other things planned for the finales, but this is the one that I am officially capping off Japanese horror with. And partly a rant as well, but we'll get into that. So what I'm talking about today is actually two films, both by the same director. Those two films being Noroi, The Curse, and The Occult. I believe both are on YouTube, but Occult at least is. Again, this was one of those, I was supposed to have a physical copy, but the bootleg site that I ordered from hasn't shipped them. Whatever. So the reason I'm talking about these two last isn't because they're some of my favorite Japanese horror films of all time, more so that I think what they do beautifully well. And that is, I think that they perfect the found footage style of video making, of movie making. Where the Blair Witch falls flat, and other films like, I'm not going to talk about one until later, where those films fall flat is it doesn't make a lot of sense why the camera person is so good at cinematography, why they have such a nice camera. You know, these are things that, like, even a film that I like, Cloverfield, it kind of is never explained why this dude is carrying around a big heavy camera the entirety of the time. I know there's like one throwaway line where like, oh, I have to document it. Shut up, you're stupid, shut up. The reason why it works in Noroi, The Curse, and The Occult is because they're actually documentary crews. They're actually trying to make a documentary. And I'm not about to pretend that this is the first movie to ever do it, to ever make a mockumentary and a mockumentary horror film. I just think that it is a really good turn on found footage, and it makes a lot more sense. So these two films do it wildly well. And they still have a lot of that otherworldliness to them. You know, that kind of monsters and ghosts and whatnot that I think is vital to horror. I'm not into slasher flicks. Not in the slightest. Even with things like Friday the 13th, as they progress into the film series and they start talking more about Jason and, oh, Jason is a supernatural entity. Overall, not into them. If you're gonna do something that could happen in the real world and it's horror, not into it. I need that kind of disconnect. So the movie I want to rant about today has no otherworldliness to it. It has no monsters. It has no ghosts. It is just a serial killer. The Poughkeepsie Tapes is, to me, the worst film ever made. Not from a technical aspect, purely because of how it made me feel when I finished watching it. It is a similar style movie where it's a documentary crew making a documentary about the Poughkeepsie Killer, this fictitious serial killer who at every step of the way has duped cops for years on end, and they find his house and he's got all these videotapes in it. It's very Mary Sue-esque. If you don't know what a Mary Sue is, Google it, I guess. That maybe came off rude. A Mary Sue is basically it's like a character that can do no wrong, that is just always getting the upper hand on their opposition, just cause. Never really explained. And the serial killer in the Poughkeepsie Tapes is a Mary Sue, directly calling out one of the parents of the people that he's taken, just standing at her doorstep with a video camera, and even though she pegs him, even though she pretty much instantly realizes, hey, this dude's doing something fishy, he still manages to get away. Fuck off. That's stupid. And then come the end of the film, when the FBI have finally we've put two and two together, And we figured out that the only person who did a map quest for this place where this murder happened did it from this address. So we're gonna go, and by the time they get there, the house is empty except for the videotapes. Fuck off. Fuck off. I despise the Poughkeepsie tapes. It is not a fun film. It is infuriating. And half of it is torture porn. Is just straight up people getting murdered. Of course it's all fake. Of course it's all special effects, and it's like none of it's real. That doesn't matter. I don't like to see it. I don't like to see that shit. It's a disgusting film. And I think anybody involved with it is an awful person, especially the director and the writer and the producer and all those people at the top. Because, everybody else has, like, the way out. They're like, oh, I needed this to make my career, or, oh, I couldn't get a job anywhere else, and I had to do this. They have that out. The director, the writer, the producer don't have that out. They are discussing human beings, and they're awful. And I hate the Poughkeepsie tapes. It's a bad film. Don't watch it. Watch Noroi the Curse or The Occult instead. Noroi the Curse has more of that supernatural element. The Occult definitely has it, but it's a little bit more downplayed, and the ending's a bit silly, but it's still a decent time. Both of them are, and boy oh boy do I hate the Poughkeepsie tapes. Not even gonna put it in the title of the video. Not talking about it. I did talk about it. Awful film. Watch these two instead.